Have you ever, walked out of a movie theater with a friend, and while you thought you just watched this profound, heartbreaking tragedy, your friend thought it was a hilarious dark comedy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Right, and you sat in the exact same room, looking at the exact same screen for 2 whole hours. But you both walked away with completely different realities.
It really makes you realize that we just walk around every day assuming our perception of the world is objective.
Yeah.
You look at a tree, I look at a tree. It's a tree.
Exactly. But then you hit these moments where it becomes painfully obvious that human beings are experiencing wildly different versions of life, even when they're standing right next to each other.
It's the ultimate illusion, isn't it? I mean,
Right.
We assume our brain is like a documentary camera, just passively recording exactly what happens in front of us.
Right. But it's not.
No, it's much more like an active director in an editing room.
Wow.
It's constantly slicing things up, throwing footage away, adding dramatic music.
Shaping the whole narrative before we even consciously register what we're looking at. And, well, understanding how that editing room actually works is the foundation for what we're getting into today. So welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are unpacking some really fascinating insights from life and business strategist Tony Robbins. We're focusing specifically on how you can navigate rapid, overwhelming technological changes, like, the current wave of AI.
Right, because to survive that, you first have to fundamentally rewire your own psychology.
Yes. It's a conversation about understanding the core needs that drive everything we do. Because surviving what's coming isn't just about economic strategy, right? It's about holding onto your mind and finding actual fulfillment when the ground is literally shifting under your feet.
Totally. If you want to understand how to adapt to massive external changes, you really have to start by looking inward. You have to understand that your internal filtering system dictates, well, literally everything about your life.
So let's ground this right away with a story from Tony's own childhood. It's Thanksgiving, and he's growing up in a really rough environment, immense poverty. His mother struggled deeply with addiction and abuse, and he had 4 different fathers over the course of his childhood. Money is incredibly tight. So they're basically looking at crackers and peanut butter for Thanksgiving dinner.
Man, that is bleak.
It really is. Tensions in the house are naturally just boiling over, but then there is a knock on the door. And a complete stranger is standing there holding 2 massive bags of groceries and a frozen, uncooked turkey.
I mean, for a family in that position, that's an absolute miracle. It's food on a day meant for feasting, provided when they literally had nothing.
Right. But his father doesn't see a miracle.
He doesn't.
No. His father reacts with pure rage. He yells at the delivery guy, "We don't take charity," and literally slams the door in the guy's face.
Wow. Wait, he slammed the door on free food.
Yeah, because he looked at those groceries and interpreted them as a direct insult. To him, this gift was undeniable proof of his own failure to provide for his family. It was proof of his worthlessness.
That is such a powerful example of that editing room we talked about.
Exactly. But young Tony was standing right there, experiencing the exact same event, and he processed it completely differently. His takeaway was so simple, he just thought, strangers care.
And that one specific interpretation completely rerouted his life, didn't it?
It did. It eventually drove his entire mission to feed billions of people.
And the mechanics of why those 2 reactions were so completely opposite is where things get really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because we are all constantly making 3 very specific decisions in every single moment, mostly subconsciously.
Okay, let's unpack those. What's the first decision?
The first decision is simply, what are you going to focus on? I mean, the human brain is bombarded by millions of bits of information every second.
Right. If you tried to process all of it, your nervous system would fry.
Exactly. So to survive, your brain constantly deletes and distorts reality. It blurs out almost everything so you can just focus on one thing.
So the mind is basically a camera lens.
Yes, perfect analogy.
If you adjust the focus to a tiny subject right in front of you, the entire background gets completely blurred out. You can't even see it anymore. Tony's dad focused his lens extremely tightly on the bruise to his own ego. That became his entire reality.
Yep, and Tony focused his lens on the food and the generosity, and that became his.
Which leads us directly to the second decision, right? What does this mean?
Right. Once you focus on something, your brain desperately tries to assign meaning to it. Like, is this a threat? Is this a gift? Is this the end of the world or the beginning of an opportunity?
And here's the really critical mechanism for you to understand: meaning equals emotion.
That's right. The exact millisecond you assign meaning to an event, you produce an emotion. If the meaning is, I have a failure, the emotion is shame and anger.
But if the meaning is stranger's care, the emotion is overwhelming gratitude.
Exactly. And then comes the third decision, what am I going to do about it? Because emotion drives action.
Right, so the father felt shame, so his action was to slam the door. Tony felt gratitude, so his action was to spend his life paying it forward. Focus, meaning, action.
And if you don't actively take control of that first step, what you focus on, the stories you tell yourself will just run on autopilot.
And those stories become your beliefs.
Yes, and beliefs are the invisible forces that dictate your entire life. If you aren't controlling your focus, you really aren't controlling your reality. You're just a passenger reacting to things happening to you.
And reacting passively instead of controlling our focus is exactly what's going to get us crushed by the massive wave that's currently breaking over society.
You're talking about AI.
I am. Let's talk about the AI revolution, because about a decade ago, Tony actually had a conversation with President Obama, and he warned him that just one singular technology, self-driving cars, was on track to displace 8 million jobs in the U.S. alone.
8 million people. Just from autonomous driving.
Yeah. And if we look at where we are today, the scope of the disruption is, well, exponentially larger.
Oh, without a doubt. AI and nanotechnology aren't just coming for physical labor or driving anymore. They are fundamentally dismantling white-collar work.
Right, like coding, financial analysis, copywriting, customer service. These roles are just evaporating or changing beyond recognition.
It's a huge shift. We're actually looking at a historical parallel, similar to the Luddites in the UK during the 1800s.
Okay, let's touch on that. And just to be clear to the listener, looking at this purely as a historical and psychological framework from the source material, what happened with the Luddites?
Right. Impartially speaking, the Luddites weren't just these anti-progress cavemen. They were skilled textile workers who suddenly watched machines wipe out their entire livelihood almost overnight.
And they reacted by destroying the machine.
Exactly, which led to massive societal upheaval. The government literally made machine breaking a capital offense.
Wait, I have to stop you there. Because when we talk about AI displacing jobs today, the immediate panic is always about income. We lose our paychecks. But isn't Tony pointing to a much darker psychological threat here?
He is, yeah.
Like, if we are really heading toward a post-work world, are we basically losing our entire modern identity?
That is the absolute crux of the issue. I mean, for the last 200 years, basically since the Industrial Revolution, our culture has fundamentally tied human identity and self-worth to economic labor.
It's so true. Think about it. When you meet a stranger at a dinner party, what is the very first question you ask?
What do you do?
Right. What do you do? We define ourselves by our output. But if artificial intelligence can do your job faster, better, and cheaper than you ever could, it forces a massive psychological reckoning.
We really have to figure out how to find meaning outside of our economic productivity.
Because if we don't, we just collapse inward. And honestly, we're already seeing the leading edge of this crisis of meaning.
Yeah, the source material points to the massive spike in male isolation right now.
Right. Young men completely retreating from society, dropping out of the workforce, never asking anyone on a date. They are just retreating into the digital world, playing video games, surviving on Uber Eats, and completely checking out of the human experience.
Because they feel obsolete. And the only way out of that trap is to return to much older metrics of human value.
Before we judged everyone by their corporate title.
Exactly. We used to value people based on creativity, generosity, courage, and wisdom. If we don't decouple our identity from our labor, the psychological shock of losing our agency to AI is going to break a lot of people.
So how do you actually retool your psychology for a world where your career might just disappear tomorrow? How do you survive that?
By mastering how you learn. Specifically, there are 3 skills for the future that we all need to develop. The first one is pattern recognition.
Which is basically the ultimate antidote to fear.
It is. Think about early human beings. Before they understood the cyclical pattern of the seasons, they must have lived in a state of constant terror.
Oh, sure. Imagine watching the leaves die, the temperature plummet, the food disappear, and having absolute no idea if it would ever come back.
Right. But once they recognized the pattern, that winter is always followed by spring, the terror vanished. They could plan.
Okay, so that's pattern recognition. What's the second skill?
Pattern utilization. Recognizing the pattern isn't enough. You have to act on it. You have to actually plant the seeds in the spring to harvest in the fall.
Got it. And the third skill is where the absolute masters live, right? Pattern creation.
Yes. This is when you take all the inputs and patterns you've learned, synthesize them, and create something entirely new.
Like a world-class chef. They recognize the patterns of French cooking, the patterns of Japanese cuisine, and they fuse them to create a totally new culinary experience.
Exactly. That is how you become the absolute best, or the GOAT, in whatever you do.
And this idea of recognizing patterns applies directly to our own biology and our career trajectories, too. Tony calls this the seasons of life.
Right, human development follows a very predictable pattern. Spring is roughly ages 0 to 21. It's a time of rapid growth, learning, and you're largely being taken care of by others.
Then summer is ages 22 to 42. This is the testing phase. You are struggling, working long hours, really figuring out who you are in the world.
Then you hit fall, ages 43 to 63. This is the power period. You finally get to reap the rewards of all that hard work you put in during your summer. You have the experience, the capital, the network.
And finally, winter, ages 64 and up. This is a time of true leadership where you know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and you're passing that wisdom on.
Right.
But let me challenge this a bit on behalf of the listener. Tony puts these very strict ages on the seasons. But what if you are 50 years old, solidly in your fall, and suddenly AI wipes out your entire industry?
That's a great point.
Right. You have to start a brand new career from scratch. Aren't you basically getting violently thrown back into an economic spring?
Yes, you are. But that is exactly why understanding the concept of the seasons is so powerful. It is a meta pattern. Whether you are 25 or 55, if you suddenly find yourself starting over, you are entering a new spring. And if you recognize that, you can stop panicking about the chaos.
Because you understand that spring is a time for planting, learning, and making mistakes. It is not a time for harvesting.
Exactly. A lot of the pain we feel comes from expecting a harvest when we're supposed to be planting. Recognizing the season allows you to strategically navigate your current phase without that crushing fear that you are somehow falling behind.
Okay, so recognizing patterns reduces the fear and gives us a map. But actually taking action on those patterns, that requires breaking through our internal barriers. And apparently almost every single one of us goes about this in the exact wrong order.
We do. Whenever people decide they want to change their life, maybe they want to lose 30 pounds or finally start that business, they almost always start by looking for a strategy.
Right. They buy a diet book or they download a business plan template. They look for the how-to.
But starting with strategy is doomed to fail if your internal narrative is broken. The correct sequence of change is state, then story, and then strategy.
State, story, strategy. Let's really break down the mechanics of this, starting with state. Your state is your immediate physical and emotional condition, right?
Yeah. Think about Tony's morning routine. Every single morning, he jumps fully submerged into a freezing cold plunge pool.
Oh man, every morning.
Every morning. And the underlying mechanism here is that he absolutely does not negotiate with himself. He doesn't stand on the edge, dipping his toe in, wondering if the water is too cold today. When his brain says go, his body has to obey instantly.
Wow. So by doing that, he is aggressively conditioning his nervous system.
Exactly. Because if your physical state is weak, tired, and hesitant, the story you naturally tell yourself is going to be negative. It's going to be, I've tried everything, nothing works, I'm too tired.
But if you shock your body into a strong, decisive state, the narrative instantly shifts. Your story becomes, I am in control and I am going to figure this out right now.
Right. And once your state and your story are aligned, the strategy is actually the easiest part. I mean, you can Google the strategy for almost anything today.
That's true. But to execute that strategy without burning out, you have to use a concept called chunking.
Yeah, chunking is all about how we organize information in our minds to reduce the friction of starting.
I love this concept because why do so many people fail to go to the gym, but they never fail to eat dinner?
Because they chunk going to the gym into like 29 agonizing steps.
Exactly. They think I have to find my gym clothes, put them on, pack a towel, drive in traffic, find parking, run on the treadmill, get sweaty, shower in a public stall, change back, and drive home. It's completely overwhelming.
But eating, we chunk eating into one easy step: get food.
It's kind of like cleaning a messy garage. If you stand in the driveway and look at the entire massive disaster, your brain just sort of short circuits, you will never start.
No way.
But if you walk in and say, I am only going to organize this one single drawer on this one workbench, suddenly you have momentum. You chunked it down to something manageable.
And this brings us to the core engine that is really driving all of this behavior.
Yeah.
Every physical state we force ourselves into, every story we tell ourselves, every pattern we create, it is all ultimately a subconscious attempt to meet our fundamental human needs.
This breakdown of the 6 human needs from the source is just phenomenal. So there are 4 personality needs that everyone must meet to function. First is certainty. We need to know we can survive. We need comfort and predictability.
But if you have 100% certainty,
You're bored to tears.
right, you know exactly what happens every second of the day. So the second need is uncertainty or variety. We need surprise and challenge.
And the third is significance. This is the profound need to feel unique, important, and needed.
And the fourth is connection or love. We need to feel bonded to others.
Now, the critical distinction here is that while everyone finds a way to meet those 4 personality needs, they don't bring lasting happiness.
No, they don't. The final 2 needs are spiritual needs, and they are the only ones that actually generate fulfillment, growth, and contribution.
And that need for significance is where human behavior gets incredibly intense because people will meet that need using whatever vehicle they can find, right?
Oh, absolutely. Some people achieve significance by working 90 hours a week to build a billion-dollar company.
While others get their significance by tearing strangers down in the comments section on social media. I mean, it takes 0 skill to destroy something, but it makes them feel powerful and significant for a few seconds by making someone else feel small.
It's true. And looking at this purely as a psychological framework to understand human extremes, Tony contrasts Osama bin Laden with the 9/11 firefighters.
Okay, let's impartially lay out his framework on that.
Right. So both sets of actions, though obviously morally worlds apart, were driven by a profound human need for significance. One achieved it through mass destruction, forcing the entire world to pay attention to him by causing immense suffering.
While the firefighters achieved their significance through the ultimate contribution running into collapsing buildings, sacrificing their own lives to save total strangers.
Exactly. It is the exact same underlying human need for significance, just executed with violently different rule books and moral compasses.
And there is a massive trap built into significance. So many people chase wealth, fame, or notoriety because they subconsciously believe that if they become significant enough, people will love them. They think significance equals connection.
But it usually produces the exact opposite, doesn't it?
Yeah. Overwhelming significance rarely brings love. It brings isolation. It creates jealousy, distance, and basically makes you a target.
True fulfillment only happens when growth and contribution sit at the very top of your priority list, completely overshadowing the need for significance.
Which perfectly sets up the final piece of this puzzle for us today, the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment.
This is a great contrast.
So when Tony was just a teenager, he somehow managed to get a $35 loan from a sympathetic bank teller just so he could afford to attend a seminar by a business philosopher named Jim Rohn.
And Jim Rohn gave him a piece of advice that is brutally honest. He said, "We are all equal as souls, but we are absolutely not equal in the marketplace."
Meaning, if you want to make more money, you cannot just demand it. You have to figure out how to become more valuable to the marketplace.
That is the science of achievement. And it really is a science. There are proven mathematical rules to building wealth.
The source outlines the core 4 principles used by the smartest investors in the world. Let's run through them. Principle 1, don't lose money. Principle 2, seek asymmetrical risk and reward.
Let's explain that one, because asymmetrical risk sounds complicated, but it's really just about stacking the odds.
Right.
It means you only risk $1 when you have a highly researched, confident probability of making $5.
Right, whereas most amateur investors risk $1 to make 20 cents and they just get wiped out. If you risk $1 to make $5, you can literally be wrong 4 times in a row, and on the 5th try, you still break even.
Exactly. Then principle 3 is diversification, and principle 4 is the secret weapon, finding 8 to 12 uncorrelated investments.
And uncorrelated simply means these assets don't move in the same direction at the same time. Like, if you own 3 tech stocks and the tech sector crashes, you lose everything.
Right. But if you own real estate, gold, a tech stock, and agricultural land, a crash in one sector doesn't wipe you out. Finding those 8 to 12 uncorrelated assets can mathematically reduce your overall risk by 80%.
So achievement is a science. If you learn the math of compounding interest, asset allocation, and asymmetrical risk, you can build massive wealth. It's basically physics.
But fulfillment is an art. It is entirely subjective.
Yeah, there's this wild story about the billionaire casino mogul Steve Wynn. He bought a Rothko painting for $87 million. And if you've never seen a Rothko, This particular painting is essentially just a giant canvas painted red with a square on it.
Which Tony joked he could have painted for $100 at a hardware store.
Right. But to Steve Wynn, it wasn't just a red square. He saw deep, profound meaning, emotion, and beauty in every single brushstroke.
And that extreme subjectivity is why mastering achievement without mastering fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Absolutely. We have all seen the tragic stories of highly successful people, celebrities, billionaires, comedians who made the entire world laugh, who ultimately ended their own lives.
From the outside, they had achieved everything. But internally, they were starving.
Why? Because despite all the external achievement, they had stopped growing and they had lost their sense of contribution.
They perfectly executed the science, but they completely failed the art.
It is a really profound warning, so let's pull all of this together for you. We started with a frozen Thanksgiving turkey that forced a young boy to realize that his internal focus completely dictates his external reality.
We looked at the terrifying wave of the AI revolution, realizing that if we don't master pattern recognition and understand that we might be entering a new spring in our stakings of life, the coming disruption is going to crush our identity.
We learned that to actually change, we have to shock our physical state, rewrite our story, and chunk our strategy.
And ultimately, we have to align our 6 human needs, prioritizing growth and contribution, so we don't fall into the isolating trap of empty significance.
Knowing all of this is great, but applying it is what actually matters.
Right, and there's a rule mentioned in our discussion today. 15 minutes of micro-learning every single day. I really challenge you to apply this immediately. Tomorrow morning, instead of picking up your phone and doom scrolling for 15 minutes, use that time to study something that actually expands your patterns.
Read about a new philosophy, study emerging AI trends, or learn a piece of a new language. Take control of your focus, chunk it down to just 15 minutes, and start building that momentum.
It's just 15 minutes to literally wipe the lens of your camera clean and consciously choose what you are going to focus on.
I love that. Which leaves us with one final, lingering question for you to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. We talked about how AI is going to fundamentally disrupt our jobs, but if AI eventually takes over the entire science of achievement for us, if algorithms are writing all our code, perfectly managing our asymmetrical risk, and generating all our wealth,
will that finally force humanity to step up and master the art of fulfillment?
Or without the daily struggle of the marketplace to give us purpose, will we just completely lose our minds?
It really is the ultimate test of our internal reality, isn't it?
It's going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep focusing that lens, and most importantly, keep learning.